Hello, and welcome to And Then the Clouds Break, another vlog. Hopefully you'll get to see some different countryside today as I go for a stroll. This is perhaps going to be the hardest one I've recorded today. Morning. Because it's something that's deeply personal, and I'm still struggling to accept some of it. As I've mentioned before, I am a late diagnosis dyslexic. Most people get picked up these days, dyslexia at schools, even if it's a bit of a battle with the school or whatever, as children. But having grown up in the 70s and 80s, that wasn't something that happened to me. So I was diagnosed at the age of 48. I'm also a plural dyspraxic. I'm not quite sure where the boundaries of the two are. So this is really my personal experience of both, probably a bit mixed up, but what I'll do is I'll put a link below for those of you that want to find out a bit more, perhaps on a technical basis, etc. Thanks to everyone who's liked, viewed, shared and subscribed today, and made comments and sent me messages. It's been, to be honest, it's been fantastic and far better than I could ever hope to expect it, so thank you very much for that. Before I talk about that, let me talk about a really quick overview of what my career looked like. I left school at 17, 3 O-levels, if you remember those. I worked in retail on a YTS scheme, which was a part of an initiative to make the youth unemployment figures look a bit better than they really were, earning £27 a week. I moved towns, carried on in retail, which I did really enjoy retail, until I decided I'd want to do something else and picked up a job in an engineering firm who I knew nothing about, who turned out to be the second largest in Europe apparently. I worked there, starting at a very lowly role, and over the years progressed, got an HNC in electrical and electronic engineering after 4 years day release at college, and then progressed through project engineering. Spent 5 years in sales, which I really enjoyed, and ended up becoming a product manager. I was made redundant and decided I'd do something completely different, which is when I got a job in the NHS, and I started at a very lowly position, and worked my way up to ultimately I was managing a team of, I think, something like 10 across part of the country. Took voluntary redundancy because I was working ridiculous hours and it wasn't making me happy, and we'll talk about that in another vlog, I'm sure. Did a bit of contracting in private health, and then was offered a job at a major financial institution in the city, where I worked for 4 years before I was diagnosed with dyslexia, and I made a decision to leap and become self-employed and freelance. You may be thinking, what on earth has any of this got to do with dyslexia? But I wanted to start with a really positive tone. I've been fortunate enough to have a fantastic career. I've worked with some brilliant people, I've worked with some fantastic organisations, and I've learned a huge lot. And when I see people on Facebook forums, etc., talking about dyslexia and perhaps their children's diagnosis, there is almost a bit of despondency that actually they won't have the kind of career that they perhaps like. I'm living proof that you can do it. It's all about playing to your strengths. So, dyslexia. As I said, I'm not an expert. I'm just somebody that's been carrying it around with me for the entirety of my life. And I'd like to give you sort of how it feels to be dyslexic, or how it feels to me, because everybody's different. You may hear some rather weird noises now because I'm now walking through lots of cows. So, dyslexia. The way I liken it is that some days I will have a head full of fireworks and great ideas, and my head will be exploding with great things. Other days my thinking will be like an endless loop, which I can't escape from. And other days it's all a bit black, where I can't find a way through those thoughts. So I overthink. I have a tendency towards depression and anxiety, and I understand all those things are fairly common in dyslexics. So there are days when I'm actually a complete firework. There are days when I'm less strong, and that's just how I am. I have a very short, very poor working short-term memory. So how does this manifest itself in daily life? I can forget things easily. So it's a standing joke that I'm always looking for my glasses. Now again, that might seem quite common, but actually the reason I can't find my glasses is because I have no idea where I had them. If I go to an airport, I will check for my passport numerous times. I also struggle with organisational skills and fine detail. So if I have to organise something at some point in the future, I found that overwhelmingly stressful. Whereas someone says that let's go and do something now, I'm fine with it. If someone says let's plan something for 4 weeks' time, I struggle with it. If I'm going on holiday and I have to pack a bag, so actually I'm going away for work this week and I have to pack an overnight bag, I found that incredibly stressful. So I will usually end up with twice as many shirts as I need. So one coping strategy for me is actually I keep a wash bag with everything I need in it, because that's one element taken care of. I can just pick that bag up and chuck it in my case and everything's okay. I understand this is dyspraxia side, but I struggle with emotion, and I get overwhelmed very quickly by emotions, hence why I tend to get quite anxious about things. So making decisions, being decisive for things that aren't strengths of mine. This can be really frustrating for those around me when they want me to make a decision and I struggle to do that. And I actually find that quite upsetting because I don't do it on purpose. It's not an intention of mine. I get overwhelmed by noise and information. So if I'm in a pub, for example, and there are lots of people talking, as you usually get in a pub, my brain ends up trying to process all the information that's going on there. So if there's a group of people talking, lots of noise, my head is going out and looking into those other conversations and trying to process everything that's going on in the room, which actually affects my hearing. So actually I can't necessarily hear the conversation with the person I'm stood with. What this tends to lead to is I end up to dominate conversations so that I don't have to listen, I can talk. And it's something I really, really don't like about myself, because I know other people find it really frustrating. I struggle with fine detail. As I said, organisation skills, but fine detail. So asking me to fill out a form is incredibly difficult. Oh, I'm just being sniffed by a dog. I find that really difficult. Which again can be quite frustrating. So I will put off mundane organisational tasks because I can't do them very well. But in reality, I'm actually not bad at them. I just put off doing them. I also have very slow processing speeds. Now, how this manifests itself in my life is if someone talks to me and asks me a question, I might seem to take a huge amount of time to answer. So the question of, do I want rice or jacket potato? I don't respond because my head is going off to process that information. And when I did the assessment, so the assessment is about a 3-hour assessment for dyslexia and a number of tasks which you have to complete. It was a really graphic illustration of dyslexia for me because I'm asked to read out a list of numbers and I can do them quite quickly. I get asked to read out a list of letters and there is a noticeable pause between each word letter that I'm saying, which means that when I'm told often that one of my key strengths is that I'm a great presenter, that I make people feel really included, that I'm very relaxed. Part of that is I can't stand and read my notes. I can't stand and read the PowerPoint slide. I have to talk naturally and just have key points because that's the only way I can actually communicate. If you asked me to read something out aloud, so if I wrote notes and a script for this and I read it out to you, you would really notice it's very stilted and very stop-start, because that's how my brain works, and it's not intentional. So that's really some of the key points. And some things that I understand are dyspraxic are the fact that I have a very poor core strength, which I'm working hard at because I'm trying to run, I'm trying to get fitter, do more exercise. I have to really work at my core strength, at the core strength that I have or don't have, and apparently that's very key, very, very common for dyspraxics. I also was a very late bike rider and very late shoelace tire. Tying shoelaces was something and getting dressed. So even now, getting dressed for me can take me a long while, and I can be very clumsy at it. It's not unusual for me to pull on my pants, for example, and put both legs in the same hole, or stumble as I'm doing it. And don't ask me to park a car, because parking a car is absolutely hideous for me, because it involves coordination, so I have to judge spaces. I've mentioned a little bit about what my key strengths are. So people strengths are really for me are real up there. It's also quite acknowledged that things like architects are often dyslexic. So something like 33% of architects or something are dyslexic, because they can manipulate things in their head in 3D space that the people who aren't dyslexic can't. Now, it's said that between 10 and 20% of the population is dyslexic, so I'm hardly alone. And also, things like open plan offices, because of the way I get distracted and overwhelmed by noise and information, are an absolute nightmare for me. So actually it's been a revelation that I can work from home, and if I sit in my office at home I get far more done than if I'm sitting in an office with a load of other people, because my head is out there scanning. If there's background noise, if somebody else has got a television on and I'm trying to do something, that's incredibly distracting, because my brain is trying to work out what's going on there and gets distracted from the task that I'm working on. There are a whole list of dyspraxic and dyslexic advantages, apparently, which I'll link up. There's a book called The Dyslexic Advantage, which I'll link below, so if those of you are dyslexic or think you maybe might be interested in reading. So how can you support somebody who's dyslexic? For me, the biggest thing is understanding that the things I do, like not answering questions, aren't things that I do intentionally. They're not something that I'm not deliberately trying to not get involved. I'm not deliberately trying to avoid a question. It's just the fact that my brain has gone off to look for an answer, because the filing system works differently for me than it does for someone who isn't dyslexic. Some understanding around organisation and prioritisation in the work environment particularly. I always need somebody who can help me with that. So if someone can just do a checkpoint with me and go, okay, well, here's a list of things you need to do, Simon. This seems to be the priority. You do this bit, this bit and this bit, and I'm quite happy with that. Whereas if you say to me, go and do it, I very often go down lots of rabbit holes, which makes it quite difficult. And also, if people can help me organise is a great one too. So asking me to do something, like an example was Lads Weekend Away that I arranged a few years ago. I just told everybody the wrong date. Not intentionally, but the fact is the detail just goes over my head and I don't get it. And employers, if you know somebody who's dyslexic you work with and they're open about it, never be shy to ask them the question, how can I help you? How can I make this a bit easier? Would you like me to proofread that for you? Would you like me to have a conversation or help you to organise? So if it's organising an event, can I help you organising that? Can I give you some suggestions? Those things are really key. And I really appreciated people when they'd actually offer some help, because I took a vow that when I was diagnosed, that I wouldn't be shy about talking about it, because there is a stigma around it and people don't understand it, and people say, oh, dyslexic means you can't read or you can't write. Now, okay, my handwriting breaks down very quickly and it's very difficult to write, so that makes going shopping quite difficult if I handwrite the shopping list. Whilst those things are undeniably true, that's only part of what it is. It's a much more complex thing, because it affects your whole brain. My brain just works differently to somebody who isn't dyslexic. But that brings true strengths, but it also brings those weaknesses I've mentioned. I vowed to myself this wouldn't be a long video, and here we are at nearly 15 minutes, so I'm going to leave it there. But I hope if you know someone who's dyslexic, or if you are dyslexic yourself, it gives you a little bit of an insight. And I've no doubt I'll come back to this at some point. But actually watching this video may just give you that little bit of insight that you need, or would help that person or help you. Or if your son or your daughter has just been diagnosed, that actually it brings with it tremendous strengths. And I talk quite a lot on Facebook about dyslexia to some of the groups. And I will say there's two things someone with dyslexia needs, and that's confidence and resilience. And they're two very difficult things to get, I appreciate that. But confidence and resilience are absolutely fundamental to someone with dyslexia being able to have a good life. Because the world is not dyslexia friendly, and it never will be, at least not in my lifetime. But actually some practical things can really help. And by being open and honest about it, has been absolutely key to me. I went for an interview for a job, good organisation. Sailed through the first two interviews, was told that the third interview would be a rubber stamping exercise. I trundled along to the third interview, actually managed to arrive there on the right day, which is something of a miracle, and I told them that I was dyslexic. I never heard back from them again. And that underlined the fact that actually being honest and open about it was far better than actually burying it away and not talking about it, because the first day I turned up at that organisation, it would be clear that there was stuff I needed to do to help, along with the technology that can be offered to make a dyslexic life a bit better. Happy to answer any questions you might have, and I do apologise once again for making this quite as long a video as it is. But I hope you found it useful, helpful, and actually I found it quite emotional to talk about. But by all means, ping me a message. If you like the video, like it. If you think there's somebody that in your social circle that might get some benefit from it, please share it. Please subscribe. It would mean a lot. But and hopefully you've managed to see some of the amazing countryside I'm in again today. So I'm truly blessed to be able to do this today. Anyway, have a fantastic week, and I'll speak to you soon. Thanks, Em. Bye.